Continuing with inheritance topic, now we will see one example on multiple inheritance. All of us know what a multiple inheritance is. You have two classes, say class A and class B, and these two will be inherited by another class, say C. So you are inheriting not just from one class but more than one class, and this could extend to any number. There is no restriction as such. More than one, but there is no limit. It could be 10 or 100. So you can inherit as many as you want or as the requirement demands. And in today's example, we will see multiple inheritance with two classes. This scenario, two parent classes and one child class. And apart from the syntax, we will also see if this leads to any kind of problem or any kind of confusion when you try to execute the program. Since the code is not complicated, I won't be typing it. There is already one file wherein I have already keyed in the code. So class A is one base class, class B is one more, and here is the derived class which is inheriting A as well as B. Till now you were familiar with this syntax, correct? Inheriting from one class. And if you want to have multiple parent classes or multiple base classes, then you need to separate them with a comma. So for our situation, you want to inherit A, so write colon public A, comma public B. Okay, so this is the syntax, and I don't have any content in the derived class. All that I have is through inheritance. Whatever my base classes have, I am going to inherit the same member data or member functions. Now in this case, say I have a member function in A, say test, and incidentally another class B, this also has a member function with the same name and same signature, meaning return type is same, argument list is also identical. Now when you inherit A as well as B, you will be inheriting member functions as well, correct? Now you create an object of type C and you invoke the function test on this function, on this object. Now the compiler is in confused state. There is an object of type C and they are calling a function test, but which function should I call? Is it A version or B version? There is an ambiguity now. If there was only one function, say only A had test function but not B, then straight away whatever statements you had written in class A, those statements would have been executed. But now you have two versions. How to resolve this ambiguity? A has implemented the function test in this way. I have taken only one statement for the sake of simplicity in demonstration and also understanding. Class B has implemented it in its own way. Now when it inherits, whom is it really inheriting, A or B? In the main, I am creating object of C, and on the same object I am trying to invoke test function. As we speculated, this compilation is reporting some errors. So it says request for the member test is ambiguous because this test is defined in B and also A. How do we deal with it? This morning in the first session we came across a new concept. Can anyone tell me what is that? It was related to functions. Functions when you deal with inheritance.
Overriding.
Correct. So you have a function with certain name and return type in the parent or base class, and you are not satisfied with the implementation. You want to have your own version of the function for your own object. So let's see what happens if I override that function in my class. Before we compile, let's try to understand how the compiler might interpret this. Starting in main, object is created, memory allocation happens, and then function call. So the compiler checks the definition of the class of C object. So it arrives at this point and checks, is there a function with the name test that accepts no arguments? Yes, there is. Let me execute this. At this point, is there a need to check parent classes? You have overridden the function. So whenever you override, will the compiler go back to base classes to check the function existence? I'm not asking any new concept. If this function was not present, as I explained in the morning example, cat and tiger classes, if this is not present, only then the compiler goes to parent classes, not otherwise. Here the function is indeed present, so there is no need at all to visit base classes. So whatever is written in this function, that gets executed and that's it. No need to check the definition of parent classes for the definition of function test. So this is one way of dealing with the ambiguity that arises due to multiple inheritance. So you have two functions, and in order to avoid ambiguity, what do is have your own version of test function. So in such a case, This call will directly invoke your own member function in child class, and these two will never be checked. Okay. So if you have identical member data, it could be plain variables, just member data or member function. If they are identical in your base classes, one way to avoid this ambiguity is by function overriding. This is one way. Let's see what is the second way to deal with this ambiguity. Let me comment this. So if I comment, the ambiguity is back into its place, this test or this test, and based on some condition, say you may want to place some condition here, and if that condition is true, you can invoke test of A specifically or test of B. Here is the syntax. C object variable dot class name followed by scope resolution operator. Now this tells the compiler invoke the test function which is defined in class B. Though you have inherited class A also, the compiler will not go to this function. Instead, based on this instruction, it invokes this function in B. And this is how you deal with ambiguity that arises due to multiple inheritance. And remember, this ambiguity comes into picture only when you have identical data, either member data, primitive type variables, or member functions. If they are exactly same, only then such a situation arises, not otherwise. And these two are different ways of dealing with it. Either you override the function or specify the class name followed by scope resolution operator. I hope this concept is clear to everyone. You may quickly take this code and make a note of solution. We could have another inheritance type. There also we will encounter such a type of ambiguous situation. There is class A which is inherited by class B and also by C. What kind of inheritance is this? Is it multi-level or multiple or something else?
Ma'am, this is hierarchical inheritance.
Correct. Apart from this, there is another set of inheritance. B is inherited by D and C is also inherited by D. So now it is combination of hierarchical, multiple and multi-level. Let me highlight it and show. This and this, B to D, C to D forms multiple, A to B and B to D, it forms multi-level, and this forms hierarchical inheritance. So we have all the combinations. What do you call such a inheritance example?
Hybrid.
Hybrid, combination of all other types. So in such hybrid inheritance situation, again there is a scope for ambiguity. Let's take the same example. Class A has one member function test, okay, and this is inherited by B. So it becomes member function of B as well as C. So they have one copy of member function, one here in B and one here. So as long as you deal with objects of B or C, no confusion, it is single inheritance. Fine. Now coming to class D, this is inheriting B. So B has one copy of test function, it is inherited. Fine. If that was it, no need of any confusion. You could easily invoke test function on D object. Here is one more set of inheritance. C also has one copy of test function and C is inherited by D as well. What happens? Since you are inheriting both the classes, you have two versions or two copies of same member function. Can there be any better example than this one for ambiguity in the whole chapter of inheritance? There cannot be. So how do we deal with such a situation? You have two copies of member function. It is, first of all, it is illogical to imagine such a situation. How can you have two functions with the same return type, same argument list and same name? It just does not make sense. So if we have such code in program, what happens? Will it compile first of all? And if not, how do we deal with it? Whatever I had drawn on this slide, the same is represented in the form of code. So you have A, let us keep them side by side. Is this okay? I hope both are clearly visible. So
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
good. So you have class A, which is at the top, You can call him grandfather, and he has one version of test function. Its implementation is here. Then there are two sons, B on the left, C on the right. B is inheriting from A, C is also inheriting from A. So if this was the only case, no ambiguity. B has one version, one copy of test, C has one copy of test. But after that, there is D who is in turn inheriting from B as well as C. So how many copies do you expect? You may not be writing it explicitly, but this is what it means when you inherit. It's not actual code, but the compiler interprets it in this way. So it is as though C has code comprising of test function definition. You don't write it, otherwise it would be redundant, but by the virtue of inheritance, C as well as B have got one copy of test. No problem till this point. But pay attention to class D. It is inheriting from B. Where is that B? Here. So whatever is there in B, I need to inherit. Correct? Fine. Does that stop there? No. D also inherits from C, and whatever is there in C, I should inherit that as also. Correct? So if I copy whatever is present in C, I have content in D in this way. Doesn't it look weird? Two functions, two copies of same function, return type, argument list, even the implementation. How does it serve the purpose in any way? I want to avoid this. But before that, let's check what happens when we create an object of type T and invoke the function test. This error is similar to the previous one when we had ambiguity due to multiple inheritance. This is expected because even in this case we have partially it is multiple inheritance also, B to D and C to D. So this ambiguity was bound to arrive. So time to fix this code. Can anyone suggest one of the ways in which we can resolve it? All of you know one solution, rather two. When you have such an ambiguity, how do we fix it? Who can
Ma'am, we can
suggest a
create
solution?
function.
Please repeat.
Ma'am, we can create void test function in class C itself. I mean class D itself.
You meant function overriding.
Yeah.
Okay. So that solves the ambiguity, and this is one of the ways. What is another way? say I know which version should be called.
Using scope resolution.
So I can either choose B or C followed by scope resolution operator. Even this mechanism solves the ambiguity. So these two were the solutions that we discussed when we had multiple inheritance, pure multiple inheritance. But in this case we have hybrid inheritance. It is also called diamond shaped inheritance. So whenever you have such a scenario wherein you have one base class inherited by a few classes which are again inherited, so it's a hybrid combination, and you want to make sure that no matter how many paths exist between A and final class, say from A and till D, no matter how many inheritance paths exist, there could be one more, okay, no matter how many classes you inherit, you want to make sure that from A only one copy of test is passed on to D. Instead of multiple, you want only one copy to be present in D by the virtue of inheritance. There is one keyword that solves the entire scenario of ambiguity, which is virtual, and that you mention in the second level classes. From A you are inheriting to B, meaning B is derived class of A. Here you write one keyword called virtual followed by class name, and here also for the derived class C you write a keyword virtual. It means that first of all you are inheriting from A, B and C, and if someone inherits again from B and C, meaning there are more than one path of inheritance, that could lead to two or more than two copies, which leads to ambiguity. Since you want to avoid that, when you add this keyword, it means that no matter how many inheritance occurs, only one copy of test will be passed on to subsequent child classes. Try to understand. With this situation, earlier we had two copies of test functions, one from B, one from C. You want to avoid that. You want to have single copy. So when you write definition for B and C, you declare that A is my virtual base class. It doesn't hamper inheritance in any way for B and C, but further than B and C, if anyone inherits, they will receive only one copy of test present in class A. That is the meaning. So now I have commented these lines, and I'll also remove this resolution and class name. Earlier this led to ambiguity. Which test? There are two copies, but now I have made class A as virtual. So if class D has got only one copy of test, there should not be any kind of confusion. And this is the effect of making the base class A as virtual. Now don't think that just because you wrote the keyword virtual, it hampers the inheritance. No. This A is still real base class of B. Okay. It will not affect the inheritance to B in any way. It is still real. Okay. But it has its importance when someone else derives from B through multiple paths. Now tomorrow there could be one more situation like this. Let me draw a new diagram. From A you have B, C and then D, and there is one class which is inheriting from all of them. So if you have some function, say test, how many copies will be passed on to E now?
Yes, ma'am. A is the main class and BCD are the subclass. And BCD are the classes. All the functions which are there in the class is also inherited by E. So E will get confused, ma'am. Which one I should take? Which function I should use?
Correct. So by the virtue of single inheritance, B has one copy of test and so do C and D. Now here is one class E which is deriving from three classes, each of whom have one copy of test. So obviously if you have a situation wherein you have to inherit three copies of same member function, that leads to ambiguity. The same was detected in previous example. I had only B and C, so here I have written two copies of function will be passed on to D. So whatever question I asked was not new. The same answer you had to tell it with respect to three classes. So if you have three copies of same function test, compiler cannot decide which one to invoke. Say this is test from B, test from C, and one more copy of test from D. It's a big question mark. So you want to avoid this situation. Whenever you inherit from more than one class, which are again inheriting from another class, you want to ensure you get only single copy. For that reason, you make this class A as virtual. You are not going to alter its content in any way. You are not changing its member function definition in any manner. It simply means that no matter how many inheritance paths you have. So here how many paths do you have from A to E? Rachel?
Yes, ma'am.
How many paths of inheritance do you have between class A and class E? Inheritance paths. This is one path, A to B, B to E. So like this, how many paths are there?
3.
3.
3, ma'am.
1, 2 and 3. So even if you have 30 paths, You don't want to have 30 copies of same entity. You want to have just one copy, single copy. For that reason, when you inherit in the second level, while inheriting you specify that class A is virtual base class. So this keyword, it makes sure that the final derived class gets only one copy of member data or member function. And we verified that with the help of this example. I have added the keyword virtual. And remember, you can have these keywords in other way. You can write public virtual A. That doesn't change the output. Virtual public or public virtual. When we were studying inheritance, we have discussed and verified the order of constructors as well as destructors. And we know that constructor calls will be invoked in the order of inheritance, top to bottom, whereas destructors will be called in reverse order. I am not going to revisit that example, as we have discussed and executed that program multiple times. Here is one more scenario, and we will try to trace the order of constructors as well as destructors. First we will draw the diagram of inheritance. Class A inherited by two classes C and D. Which is inherited by F. So this is a classic example of hybrid inheritance. Correct. That's not all. We have one more class B. It is inherited by F. See here, the class F is inheriting three classes C, D and B. C and D are inheriting one class, which is A. And this class F has one member data, and that member data is not primitive type data. It is not int x, float y or string. No. That member data is a special entity. It is an object. If you are thinking, can we have object as member data? Yes, it is very much valid. You can have it as member data as you have regular variable. And what is its type? This object is of type class E. This E is independent. It is not inherited by anyone in this diagram. Okay. And since you want to have only one copy of the content present in A, what do you declare? How do you declare it?
Virtual.
Virtual. A is virtual base class for C and D. You make it virtual base class both for C and D. So if we have so many combinations of classes combined with inheritance, what should be the order of constructors? That is the question. So should it be ACD, ADB, ACF, ADF, or should it be E first because you are having object of E? Let's see. There is already code which depicts this situation. I have kept this slide and telnet window side by side so that you can have a look and compare them. There is A is inherited by C here, correct? A is also inherited by D. I have added the word virtual here. There is class B, independent class. It is not inheriting anybody. Fine. What else do we need? We have A, B, C, D, and we need one class E which is independent. It is neither a base class nor a derived class for anybody. It is independent by itself. And then we have class F. As you can see in this diagram, class F is inheriting three classes: C, D and B. Let me remove this E. B, C and D. B is independent, whereas C and D are derived classes of A. And as I said, it has one member data. I have created an object of type E. So E object is member data of F. And as you can see, in each of the classes I have one constructor defined, zero argument constructor, because our intention in this exercise is just to know the order of constructors in such a complex scenario. It's not a complex once you get hold of the concepts, but since we have come across so many classes in one program, it looks relatively complicated. So what should be the order of constructors when we create an object of type F? That is the question. Can you tell me what is the last constructor called? Forget about the starting few statements. It might be too much to ask now. What should be the last constructor at least? You should be able to tell at least that based on the knowledge that you have gained in previous sessions.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. So whichever object you are creating, its constructor will be called at last. That is for sure. Correct. Now it's time to know what about these classes. Since C and D are derived from A, will that also be invoked? It's time to check that. Okay. So I have constructor in each of the classes. As you said, F constructor will be called at last. Now we will see how is that this order was followed? Do we have any strict rules regarding that? Let's check. So in this example, you have A as virtual class, object of type F, so this is about constructor. Now let's see what happens if we add destructor as well. Any logical guess? When the object goes out of scope, what should be the order of destructors? Reverse order. So we have understood why the order of constructors is so in this example, and destructor calls will be just reverse of it. FF, FED, CBA. So just go in the reverse direction. FED, CBA. Okay. It may take a lot of time to note this example, so I'll share this code. You can write it then and execute it by yourself. I also expect you to add one more class in this inheritance. Experiment with it. You can play around with several combinations. Apart from BCD, you can add E here. Add one more class. E is independent, it is standalone. Try to inherit E also, and then speculate what should be the order, and then cross verify it with your output. That is how you learn. Okay. So that's it for today's class.